Spieth, sorted through the Puerto Rico Open and Corrales and many other tournaments. We are here. This is the Tuesday PGA show from Awesemo.com, but it's the Masters edition, which is a good one, probably the best of the year. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Tim Frank, as always. So what do we have? We've got the Masters. We made it through. Favorite week of the year, or are you another major?
Second favorite week of the year behind the RBC Heritage. So
Smart.
this is like the best 2 week stretch of golf. You got a nice tune-up this week with the Masters, and then next week
The
the
real
best
show.
tournament. Yeah, the real stuff. RBC Heritage.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, but what's not to love this week? It's a great course, great field. It's a totally different event. It's on another level, even from the other three majors. So yes,
It's
best
great.
week of the year.
It's exciting. Obviously, as we were just talking about before the show, we're going to attempt to say maybe one or two things that you haven't heard yet in the other 5,000 Masters podcasts that are out there, but we're going to have some fun with it. It's only 87 players, and there's about 15 of them who, probably not going to do much. So it is a small field. I guess we'll get right into it with that. I kind of treat this, I think a lot of people do, almost like a non-cut. Because it's so easy to make this cut, even though it's top 50, obviously 10 shots of the lead. Do you adjust how you build right off the bat?
Yeah, you almost have to treat it like a no cut, just because, like you said, it's a small field, top 50 in ties, plus the 10-shot rule, plus you have, a handful of old guys, a handful of amateurs, which effectively makes the field, 87, and it probably brings it down to about 75 viable players,
Yep.
maybe. So yeah, it's going to be really easy to get 6 of 6 through. That's been talked about quite a bit, but yeah, you definitely have to keep that in mind when making rosters. And plus, it's just, I don't want to say it's a predictable event, but there's not a lot of cut carnage. It seems like every year, we kind of know the guys at the top, and there's been a couple surprise winners, but yeah, this isn't generally a tournament that throws a bunch of surprises at us. I don't know. I'll just kind of say that, big course history, course guys who play well here tend to do it over and over again. Takes guys a little bit of time to get the hang of it, but you've seen like DJ and Rory, once they get a hang of it, it's kind of top 10 after top 10 here.
It's true. Some of and for a variety of reasons, but like the Open, you see some crazy things. Obviously, that's a rotational. That's the other thing. This is always at Augusta. And people seem to, once you get going, you don't see where it's like, oh, all like Rory, DJ, Rose, not all three of them are going to get cut. At the US Open, that happened. You see people going down all over the place. So I like this event. It's one of my favorites of the year for a DFS standpoint. I like, that there is a cut, but you still can be pretty aggressive. And then you obviously get, a smaller batch through on the weekend, 50 something guys. And it's such a strong field. It's not player strong, but up top, we obviously have everyone. The one thing, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow night, me and Jason, I guess they're calling for really bad weather, particularly Sunday. I don't think you can really do much with that. If you build enough teams, factor in some type of stacks. But am I missing anything there? Do you factor any of that stuff in?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely I would look at the weather. And I mean, if it looks like the Carnage is on Thursday or Friday, I think that's a little bit easier to prepare for. Like you said, Sunday, I mean, there's just nothing that you can do about that. Yeah, I mean, I'll be thinking about weather. There's a couple guys I think that would fare better in tougher conditions, and obviously a couple guys who would probably fare better in prime conditions. We can kind of go over that. But I try not to get carried away with the weather. I think a lot of times that does more harm than good. So unless it's completely obvious that there's going to be some sort of advantage, I try not to make too much of the weather.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm in the same boat. You research for 72 hours and then you find out it's going to be drizzling and it's elite, where now we can only play Shane Lowry, just play one guy. So I'm with you. You want to look. There's a couple guys, and we're going to mention them as we dig in. But overall, I'm not changing too much. And they have, not that I know anything about this, but all I hear is about this sub air. They can get these greens where they want them regardless. So you don't have to worry about that. But do you want to talk briefly about the course before we jump into the field, as you always do?
Yeah, sure. So it's 7,400 yard par 72. Really, to me, favors the Bombers. just look at kind of the guys who've had success here over the years. Long players, driving accuracy almost doesn't matter at all. There's just not a lot of rough here, not a lot of trouble off the tee. The main trouble you're going to find is maybe in some trees and some pine straw, but players are able to recover from that. I think there's kind of a misconception because of the size of the greens and the speed of the greens, and the undulation that, you have to be a good putter to win here. And that's just not the case for me. I mean, we've seen plenty of bad putters win here. Adam Scott, Sergio, Bubba, and the list goes on, Schwartzel. So I think that's kind of one of the things, that I try to convey is that, because the greens are fast, everyone thinks you have to be a great putter. And that's really not true. I mean, really, the ball strikers have fared much better here over the last few years than the putters. So yeah, for me, it's length off the tee. I'm not afraid to take some sprayers. Definitely, the course is going to be scoreable. There's going to be, the par fives are going to give up eagles. So it's, not a birdie fest, but there's going to be birdies and eagles. So I'm looking at driving distance, looking at par five scoring. And I'm not overemphasizing putting this week just because of the greens here.
No, it's a weird, I don't want to say it's counterintuitive, but there is something to it because it's like, there's all these levels. I think it's more important, and you can do this with the ball striking. It's not, you got to hit it on the right level. That's all you hear about. You can be on the green and you're in a horrible spot, and a guy can be on the right level right off the green and he's in a much better spot. So it's about controlling your misses with the irons. Obviously, I think that being able to be crafty around the greens, your short game, it can bail you out. When the weather gets turned up, that's going to be more at a premium. You're not going to be able to control the ball as much, and we'll see what happens. But it's just a fact. I mean, you just said it. The guys who have been winning and have won, not all of them are great putters. In fact, most of them, that list are off. Like, I mean, if Sergio can win, we know putting can't be too important. So you can definitely be aggressive off the tee. The rough is not a big factor. This is not like a U.S. Open where it's just like, okay, if you're 5 feet off the fairway, you're pitching out. That is certainly not what you see at Augusta.
Yeah, and there's no water in. I mean, there might be. I'm sure people will correct me. There's, really not a ton of water in play off the tee. It's not like you're going to find penalty strokes off the tee either. So
no, yeah. I mean, can you? Of course, there are certain holes. You get to amen quarter and whatnot, but it is a scoreable. Certainly of the majors and whatnot. This is a course that, especially if you avoid some real stupid around the green or ridiculous three putting, you can get there. You could take advantage of the par fives. Guys are going to go low. Weather will determine how low. We have seen it. There's a lot of variance in it. Obviously, like Zach Johnson won at +1. Other guys have taken this course apart. Willett won in tough conditions in 2016. It's going to depend, on what we see. So that's something to keep an eye on, and that will make some small differences in my player pool. Let's get into it. We got, obviously, all is right with the world when Rory is the top guy. So leading it off, we got Rory, DJ, Justin Rose, Tiger, JT, and Rahm. Those are the 10K plus options. Rory is at 11.6. You can really do anything. I mean, one of the funny things about breaking down a field like this, we get questions all the time like, oh, do you like this? Like, yes, I like all of these phenomenal players. But do you have a preference of where you think you want to start?
Yeah, it's really tough this week because aside from the really cheap players, there's really no horrible plays besides Spieth. So, he's really the only terrible play on the whole board. But you can make a case for any of these guys. I think I'm preferential to DJ up top. It depends on how the ownership is going to shake out. To me, it's a coin flip between him and Rory. Rory's playing a little bit better. But prior to the match play, we saw DJ 6th, 5th, 1st, and 9th. He's got top 10s here his last 3 starts. Yeah, I think people will be on Rory a little bit more. And I think if there's a significant difference in the ownership, I'll go to DJ because I really feel like it's a coin flip. And if you're going to get that kind of leverage off of Rory, I really wouldn't mind going to DJ. To me, it's almost a toss-up between those two guys, and it just feels like Rory's going to garner more ownership. Rose, I think he'll be popular as well just because he has such a great history here. We've seen him knock on the door so many times, seems to always play well here. So to me, I think it's DJ at the top, but obviously you could make a case for any of these guys.
So I think that DJ is definitely going to get, they're going to all garner ownership. We know that, but there's no way that DJ is going to get to Rory levels. Coming off the players, the match play, he didn't do anything either way to move the needle, which is fine. But his stock is sky high. He's going to be really popular. He's had so many chances as well. It's tough because I love Rory, but I don't know if I can. What am I going to do? Play 50% of him? I mean, I do that all the time, but I prefer to do that when he's like 12%, not 30%. So we'll have to see. To me, though, all in all, the guy that I really feel like starting with is Justin Rose. You mentioned he's lost to Sergio in the playoff. Said other, runner up another year, so many chances. And the thing I like about him, not that these other guys aren't going to be there, but Rose seems to hold it together when he doesn't have it better than anyone. Obviously, I hope he has it, but his ability to kind of, not lose the tournament on Thursday, get in position. We've seen him so many times make the cut on the number with one or two shots, and then you look in the middle of Sunday and he's in fifth and he's coming. So I think he'll be in position on Sunday, and whether he can close, we'll find out. He's had his chances. What about, we have to talk about your boy, Tiger. Yay or nay?
No, I don't think I can get there in this tournament. I feel like the ownership is going to be there, even if maybe just the public, I feel like is going to be on him, if nobody else. If maybe the regulars that play DK week in and week out, but it just seems like he's going to be such an easy name for the public to click. And I mean, I don't know. I don't remember the last time I touted Tiger, so I don't think I'm going to start here.
Yeah. I have no problem with Tiger. He's another one. I would be stunned if he missed the cut. I think he'll play fine, but you're talking about an opportunity cost of getting Tiger or getting one of these guys, or getting a discount to JT, who's not going to be popular, getting a discount to Rahm, who, I don't think he's going to be overly popular, and that's a tough sell. So I almost don't mind Tiger like in a cash setting, to be honest. I think he's going to play, and he's certainly capable, but he's priced with the best players in the world, and I'm not sure exactly where he falls and all that.
Yeah, he's played well this year, but he hasn't been, just not quite there. He's I'm not ready to put him in the level of Rory, DJ, Rose. These guys have all won this year. Just Tiger seems maybe a little bit overpriced. I just don't like him in this range, like you said.
Fair enough. Do you have, and then we're going to move because I want to talk about Ricky, but what about Rahm just in general? I backed him at the players really hard. I thought I was a damn genius, and then he went in the water like he inevitably does. He was good last year here. I think he has the talent, obviously. I think most people do. Yay or nay, or kind of just indifferent.
I like Rahm. The thing that concerns me is sometimes he just has seems to mentally lose it a little bit, and I think this is a place that could get to him.
Mm-hmm.
At 10K, I love him. The way he drives the ball is amazing. I was talking to some guys on Twitter. It's like he drives the ball so well, it doesn't matter that his approach game isn't great because he's just in position A. And we've talked about this before. He's just driving it so well that he can hit a mediocre approach and still have a great opportunity for a birdie. So I'm not really concerned, with his approach game. More concerned of, can he hold it together here? We've just seen him when it starts to go, it really goes for him, and that would be the only drawback for playing Rahm. But yeah, I don't have any problem with him. He's definitely not a guy, I would say no way I'm not playing him. I'm just slightly concerned that when it starts to go bad, he just doesn't seem like a guy that really grinds it out. He kind of compounds errors, and this is a place where he could get in trouble doing that.
See, that's just to bring it back, and then we'll move to the 9K range. That's like what I was trying to say about Rose, to the most extreme opposite. Like, how many times have we seen Rose start with a double, and then before you know it, he's right back in position? Rahm is the kind of guy, of course, when he's on, he's one of the best in the world, if not the best, I think, honestly. But when he doesn't have it, if it's windy, a couple bad breaks, a couple bad bounces, can he get in the clubhouse shooting an even round, shooting a 1 under in horrible, unlucky conditions, or avoid, the 6 over round, and then you're done? That's my concern too, but I'm going to have some, there's no doubt. Right below him, probably one of the more popular guys, he always is. Breaking the 9K range, we got Ricky leading off at 9.7, Brooks Bryson, Fleetwood, Day, and Paul Casey. I always like Ricky. I was in on him last year. Should have won. I mean, not in the sense that he blew it or anything. It's just he ran into a bad year to be with Patrick Reed there. He played well enough to win. What do you think? He's at 9.7. You get a discount if you start with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be popular. Like I said last week, I don't love the ball striking, just seems to be down a little bit for him, but he plays so well here, and he is playing well on the season. He's one of the few guys who I think can win this tournament in pristine conditions, or if it gets tough and windy, he has the great short game too, and I don't think that would really hurt him either. So, that's a reason for me to play Ricky. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter the conditions. I feel like either way, he's got a great chance. I just don't know at 9,700. I feel like he's going to be super chalky, and the ball striking just has not been as good this year as it has been in the past. And I think there's just guys great kind of leverage plays with Brooks and Bryson who aren't playing well, but I just think Brooks, we've seen him play so well in majors before, obviously just seems to come out for the US Opens and in the other majors. And here he's gone 33rd, 21st, 11th, seem to have, gotten better as he goes. I think just between him and Bryson, they're two guys that aren't playing well, but I just think the win equity is there. One of these guys could turn around. You're getting such a discount. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where Bryson looked like he was going to be one of the favorites here. So I'm willing to bet one of these guys turns it around. So I think these are two guys to kind of, if you can get lower ownership on them, I think they're really good plays because they've kind of fallen out of form, but obviously the talent's there and a discounted price is really nice as well.
I'm with you, particularly with Bryson. I worry because he needs to get his irons fixed. Now, with him, who knows what's going on. And I do think I've said this before, when he gets off track, it's difficult to keep it together just because he's so technical. But at the same time, I think, he could have been 11K in this field if he had that form that was coming in. I mean, he was winning at a ridiculous clip, and now you knew he was going to cool off. But that we know the game is there. Gotten a couple chances. He was 21st. I believe that was when he was an amateur. He didn't do much last year, but he's made the cuts. I think this is where we see him take that next step. I would certainly expect his best Masters finish, whether that's 15th or 2nd. I obviously don't know. If you're roster him, you're certainly hoping for the latter. And then the next guy you have, for me, I'll just get Casey out of the way. I think he's almost a lock in cash if you're building balanced. He seems to play well here every single year. Fleetwood's more of the wild man. He should take to this course. We haven't seen a ton from him in Masters, obviously only a couple years of experience. I have no problem with him, but I think I prefer Bryson over Fleetwood and then Casey in the cash setting.
Yeah, I'm with you on Casey. I mean, you're not going to find anybody that's going to really have a reason to fade Casey. 15th, 6th, 4th, 6th, the last 4 years here. Ridiculous. He's playing really well this year. I mean, everything lines up for him. Definitely like him in cash. Probably will be owned. But yeah, I mean, in this range, it's just I'm just going to go back to Brooks and Bryson. I think you're going to have to find a place to get lower owned players this week. And I would rather pivot to another elite player and try and gain leverage that way than to go way down the board and just play some completely off the wall guy at 6,400. So I really, I mean, it's loaded. I mean, the only guy we didn't talk about is Day in this whole range. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some studs here, but yeah, Brooks and Bryson for tournaments for me.
And Day is interesting, obviously. All these guys, as we've said, it's going to be building to narratives, building to uniqueness, and just to kind of further the point you were just making, I think a lot of people say like, even in the Millie, not that, the strategy for winning that is get really lucky, obviously, but even in a tournament like that, it's like, oh, well, I got to take, Andrew Landry because I have to beat 100,000 people. It's like, no, you just want to be a little different in terms of a combination. So like, not, just to give an example, if you started like Rahm Bryson, that's a damn good combo. How many people are going to do that? A couple percent? Like, I don't think that's going to be even remotely popular. There's a lot of ways to do things without being insane in terms of just taking someone who has, a minimal chance. That's what I'm going to look to do up top is mix and match like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it always seems better to just pivot to, and this is almost applicable in every sport, just pivoting to another elite player rather than trying to just hit a one percenter at 6,200, and hope that Victor Hovland gets a top five.
It's just in a field like this too. You're just asking for such a narrow window. Like it's so brutal. Um, so now obviously the moment is here. The viewers are tuned in. They've got their popcorn. 8,900. Jordan Spieth. Uh, the course history is immaculate. The off the tee game is slightly disturbing. First of all, where do you think? I know it's early. How popular do you think he'll be though, just on a gut feel?
I think he'll be. I don't think he'll be chalky. Because I mean, that are plugged in can realize how poorly he's playing. But there's plenty of people who, I mean, if you talked, I just talked like some of my friends who barely play DFS. They're like, I'm playing Spieth. I don't care. He plays well every year here, and even you hear it on Twitter when I start talking trash about Spieth. People are like, oh, he owns Augusta. Like, there's people who have this mindset that he can just show up and play well here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think he'll be in the Millie? 10%?
That's what I was gonna say. Over under 10%.
Yeah, I think he'll be around 10, which is honestly pretty low owned considering it's a small field in his course history here. But I put it out there on Twitter. He's played well here, and sure, the course will kind of mask his off the tee problems because you can spray it a little bit here. But the last 5 years, he came into Augusta with a great tee to green game. I mean, he's been gaining the last 5 years, around like 1.5 strokes tee to green, coming into Augusta. And then he played well. Well, he played well here because he was playing really well. He was in great form entering this tournament. This year, he's, losing like 0.6 of a stroke tee to green or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but he's been awful off the tee. He's been not good with his irons. He hasn't been great around the green. I mean, he just is not playing well. And I don't think he's going to magically show up here and that's going to change. So yeah,
I mean, like I said, he seems to love these greens, and there's so much all the stuff, and he can read and he can putt. He's a wizard with all that stuff. But again, to me, it's all about with everything in DFS, and particularly with golf, range of outcomes. And it's like, yes, can Spieth conjure it up and hold it together and maybe turn something into it? Sure, but of all the guys, you're asking for a lot of risk when you have guys like Paul Casey, guys like Decky, right there, and then you have in the mid eights, you have guys who aren't going to be, not super unpopular, but the Scotts, the Molinaris, Xander types, where I feel a hell of a lot more confident about their games going into this. Spieth is the one guy. I mean, would you really be shocked if he just completely blew up and really struggled again? How could you,
Yeah, I mean, he's shown almost nothing
No.
this year. He's flashed a couple times. He's had a couple good rounds. But outside of that, he's looked very poor. And if you're playing him, I mean, I just can't. It's one of those things where if he was gaining a stroke and a half with the ball striking and the putter was just terrible, it's like, oh yeah, maybe the putter is going to come around. But I mean, you're playing him, you're basically hoping for a miracle that he's just going to show up to Augusta and magically transform into a much better player than he has been all year, or even last year. I mean, he's just this is a prolonged slump for him. I don't see it happening.
We got Bubba right there, and I'll just say my quick spiel about him. He's the number one player that if it's rainy and windy, I think is at a disadvantage from where his median outcome would be if it was normal conditions. He does not like to do that. I don't have a ton of interest either. Obviously, I will pass the floor to you about Decky. I love him. I'm assuming that you do. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
nothing's changed. It's just week in and week out of elite ball striking. He didn't advance out of his pool in the match play, but I'm not really concerned with that at all. It's kind of a write-off for me. We've seen him, 19th and 11th the last 2 years. Prior to that, 7th and 5th. So he has, good history here. He's, not contended, but come close a couple times. And yeah, we're just going to keep following that ball striking because, it's right in the mold of a guy like Adam Scott, who, premier ball striker, not a great putter. We know Decky's been bad with the putter, but that's just not something that concerns me at all. He's just been so consistent. So yeah, like what's not to like? Yeah, just fire him up.
It's true. He's trending slightly downward in terms of these finishes, but they're all top 20s. They're all, he's around the leaderboard. And I think we've seen with almost, I don't want to say everyone, but the thing with Augusta, you kind of get your feet wet, you get some experience, and then you start to kind of break through. Patrick Reed hadn't done much. Sergio had a ton of experience, but, not the greatest stuff. And then it clicks. So Decky, he is finally, back to where we all knew he would be with these irons. I mean, it's just ridiculous how well he's playing. Can't putt, but as we talked about, that's not going to be a killer here. If he makes a couple, timely chips, timely scrambles, leaves himself in good areas, I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, so I'm with you. Anyone else, in this mid range, this is where you're going to get some variation. From Usti to Finau to Phil, Scott. Like, these are not guys that I expect to be popular. All viable candidates, obviously. Do you have a favorite in there?
Probably Adam Scott at 8,400.
Okay.
Past winner here, a couple other top tens. It's been a little hit or miss this year, but played well on some tough courses in some big events. 12th at the Players, 7th at Riviera. Played well at the Farmers. I mean, it's just kind of, up and down a little bit for him. But I think this is one of the tournaments where I'm just going to try and embrace some of the more volatile players. In guys that have big upside, but maybe have missed some cuts as well, and that might be depressing their ownership, might have kept their price down a little bit. So yeah, for me, it's Scott. I think we've seen him, play well several occasions this year, and obviously we know he likes it here. I think 8,400 is a good price, but this is a pretty loaded range. I mean, could definitely make the case for Xander or Molinari. I'm probably not playing Phil. Finau for me has just seemed to cool off a little bit too much. I know people like him and he's a great course fit, but I'm not sure. Just hasn't seemed to been not as sharp as we saw maybe at the beginning of the year or even in last year.
He's one of the tougher ones for me because I'm interested because he has cooled off, and I think people love to play Finau. He had the whole debacle last year with his ankle. He would have been crazy popular. And now you don't hear his name as much. So I may have some stabs, but I'm actually with you. I think Adam Scott sets up pretty well. His putter is not taking him out of tournaments, and that's good enough. Like, if he can just hold it together on the greens, let everything else do the heavy lifting, there's no reason he can't play well here. And then, as we work down, obviously you have the champ and Patrick Reed. I have pretty much no interest in him. The game is just not there for me. If he comes out and turns it around, more power to him. I don't think he's going to be remotely popular, which is always interesting. But just, I don't know. There's something seems not clicking with Reed's game right now.
Yeah, I know. He's not been good this year. I don't expect too much out of him. He won last year, but even with that win, you would not say that this is a great course fit for him. Tough place to defend, and you're just not playing well. So yeah, not much interest in Reed. What are you doing with Kuchar, who's probably the highest owned player on the week?
So obviously, again, cash, you put Kuchar in there. I think that's pretty obvious. It's tough because part of the allure in golf when you have massive ownership is there's miscut equity. And even though the guys who are chalk, usually they're playing incredibly well or they're very good or they're mispriced, but there is a chance that you get paid off if they just have bad 36 holes. At the Masters, that's mitigated. So like the chances that Kuchar misses the cut here it's pretty low. Obviously, can he? Of course, anyone can. It's just hard to imagine he doesn't give you at least a decent showing. And I think we both, as we've talked about before, the pricing coming out early, Kuchar would have been in the mid-8s if his match play was in there. So on teams where I have a weird combo up top, I'll use him to kind of stabilize the middle of those lineups. If I start with like Rory and Ricky and Kuchar, like me and my 50,000 best friends are going to have a nice time chopping it up. So it's hard not to like him though, right? I mean, what's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
to
there's
like?
really no reason to not like him. But like you said, it's like it's almost impossible to envision him killing you because the made cut equity is so high for him. Just the way he's playing, he's never even missed a cut here at Augusta. Doesn't seem like the prototypical great course fit here because he doesn't hit the ball very far. But he's had plenty of top 10 finishes. Um, yeah, I'm probably with you. I don't think I definitely wouldn't be all in on Kuchar. Maybe play him in some of the lineups where you're more contrarian. Um, but yeah, it's just really hard to envision a spot where he kills you this week, especially at that price at 7,900.
That's the thing. Like, it's more going to come down to, is there someone else in this range? And it's not like you can't use them both, but like, I don't mind, not even don't mind. I like Sergio. I think Leishman is interesting. So these are guys that you can use with him or as a pivot. But I agree. It's like, people all the time, mostly Kokrak, because I obviously don't understand. That's another story for another time. You don't want to just fade people just to fade them. It's about blow up risk, it's about leverage, and a lot of things like that. So Kuchar's one where, depending on the team, I'll probably just take him and let my other five guys determine my fate on certain teams. But as we work down to these mid sevens, this is for me I think where the tournament's going to be decided. I'm just going to rattle off some names and I'll let you go. As I mentioned, Sergio, Leishman, Stenson is 76, Woodland is 75, Poulter's in there. I think this is a really interesting range. I wouldn't be stunned to see a dark horse winner from this range. Do you have a kind of a priority list from it?
Yeah, I really like Sergio. He was striking the ball amazingly well. They got to Valspar and just kind of fell apart a little bit. Definitely on the weekend, did some Sergio things, but then came back, played well at the match play. So I mean, if you throw out the Valspar, the ball striking had just been phenomenal. Past winner here, I like him. I love Stenson at 7,600. Going into the match play, the approach game had just been on fire. The previous three events, which were two made cuts and a miscut, so it was like, his last 10 rounds, he had gained something like 16 strokes just on approaches alone. So that's back to peak Stenson. He kind of got a bad rap for not having a good course history here, and it really wasn't terrible. But I just think for how well or how great of a player he was over the last 10 years, he just hadn't seemed to figure this place out. But last year, played very well. T5. I just think you're kind of getting peak Stenson in a kind of a sneaky spot. Played really well at the match play as well. So I think 7,600. I really like him and really like Sergio. Woodland is the guy that I'm not sure what to do with. The season long ball striking numbers are there. Hasn't been as great the last couple times out. Has a pretty poor course history here, but I don't know. I kind of I don't want to say I like that he has a poor course history, but I think that'll keep people off of him. And we know this is a place where the Bombers thrive. So he's intriguing to me at 7,500, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with him.
It's weird because, conceptually you look at Woodland and there's no reason that he should be fine here. I don't want to say it's like, of course he should tear apart, but I think it's a better setup than not. It's not like, oh, his game shouldn't translate. But then you see, three miscuts. Not this is a hot take. I would assume he plays the weekend and is just fine. The thing about Stenson that's interesting is in the past, I feel like he's been a little higher price, so that window was smaller for him to kind of return value, and that's where he got a knock of, when he comes in 14th, if he's the seventh most expensive player, you're like, Stenson. Now he's in the mid sevens, so we've seen him, some of his finishes that maybe wouldn't be regarded as useful this year. Not that you're hoping he just skates by. You obviously want him to contend, but I like where he's kind of this new pricing with him. I feel like it's kind of a different tier that you have to rate him at, and it certainly intrigues me.
Yeah, and the finishes, just looking at them, they're not amazing. Nothing's going to blow your doors off, but I think the approach numbers and the way he played at the match play just came out looking really strong in the pool play. So yeah, he's one of my favorite players on the board. Hopefully, I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive off the tee. I think that's one of the things that maybe has held him back here at Augusta. That he's not as aggressive off the tee. But yeah, I mean, last year, that's definitely the T5 last year is promising. We'll just say that.
Yeah. So every tournament, it's arbitrary, but I feel like and then there's a drop off. And to me, it's at 7,500. Obviously, we have plays. There's no doubt, but you've got Stenson at 76 and those type of guys. And now we get into we've got RCB, we've got the Cam Smiths of the world, some of the Europeans, Hautong, Sneds, these types. I'm not nearly as high as this range as a whole. Kind of a dead range for me. What do you think about some of these plays?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, and it seems weird. It feels like in the Masters in years past, there's always been a couple, even if they were chalky guys in like the 6,800 range that were, almost a plug and play. And it just doesn't seem to be the case this year. And there's not a ton I like. I'm going to take some shots with Hao Tong, another guy who's just kind of up and down. And if you catch him on the right week, I think you can get some pretty big upside for 7,200 out of a guy that's not super popular. Besides that, Grace is like your quintessential bad weather player.
Yeah, he gets
that probably everyone will go
boost.
to. I don't think it's a great course for him in good weather, but we'd have to see. Tougher conditions would be a little more up his alley. Same thing for Snedeker. I don't think in prime conditions, I don't think this is a great Snedeker course. But maybe tougher conditions would make it a little bit better for him. But yeah, I'm not really into anybody in this like low 7 range, to be honest.
Sneds, yeah, I agree. There's certain conditions that I will definitely up him in terms of exposure. We did have a question from chat, and I think it's leading into the range. It's pretty interesting. Josh from chat wants to know about CH3, he's an Augusta guy. He doesn't have any recent history because he could never get in the Masters, but he finally got a win this year, and now he's in the field. I think it sets up pretty good for Howell as your last man in. But we haven't seen him here in a while. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, super consistent. At 7K, it's not like you really are looking to find the winner at flat 7. So yeah, hard to envision, how killing you is how consistent he plays. He's just never a guy that I really target. But probably one of the better plays in this range. But not saying much because I'm not super high on this range.
It's just interesting for me because again, it talks about lineup construction. Like, am I gonna take a shot like Hao Tong Lee to anchor your lineups? If you do that, that there is a real chance that he actually ends up carrying your lineups. Now, he also could derail them severely. Whereas someone like CH3, it's like, all right, I've got what I want in terms of upside. I want to fill a couple spots with guys who are just going to come in the mid-20s and do their thing, and I'll let whoever else on the team get it done. That's how I kind of sort these guys down here. It's tough, though, because depending on how you build, most likely you're going to need somebody, obviously either from the 6s or the low 7s. I don't know how you really avoid that. And there's not that many safe quality options, and certainly not ones that aren't going to be popular. There's some massive ownership leverage spots.
Yeah, there's going to be some chalky guys down here. There's safe. But I mean, it's something you're going to have to take a chance with somebody in your lineup.
Yeah, you can't go two. Yep.
You can't just go 6 guys and say I'm playing, Kuchar, Stenson, Kisner, Ricky. I mean, at some point you have to try and differentiate yourself and go a little get away from the safety and go for a little bit of upside, a little bit of leverage, low ownership. So yeah, somewhere you're gonna have to do something.
Don't play Charles though. That's my advice.
Never Charles.
Charles enjoyed the dinner tonight and chill out, play your 36. But all right. Well, as I always say, before we dive into the real sickos, 6K range, obviously, if you give the video a like, we always appreciate that. From chat, we see you in there talking about Tiger, bunch of sickos, but I like your style. And then obviously, if you haven't signed up, you can do that. Use the promo code JazzRaz. We got a lot of different deals going on. You get the projections and my article and Tim 24/7 personal service, all Jason's content, Awesomeo. And then we have, the phenomenal team for NBA playoffs, NHL, and MLB, which is they're only like 8 games into the never-ending season that is baseball. So we got that going. But now we've got to get dumpster diving. I'm going to get right to it with Charlie Hoffman. He's going to be talk about a guy who one good showing at Valero has just changed the entire narrative around him. Obviously, the first round leader bets have been bet down to nothing.
What do you he's like 6-1 to be first round leader.
It's like Rory, Charlie Hoffman, DJ. It's so ridiculous. Having said that, it's hard not to say, man, you get sucked into that at the Masters because it's like all he's got to do is make the cut. Someone's going to miss the cut. It's not like everyone gets through. Do you have interest, or are you thinking that you're going to let other people chase Valero?
Yeah, I'm going to let other people chase Valero. Yeah, I'd much rather play a chalky guy like Kuchar than play a chalky guy like Charlie Hoffman, honestly. I mean, he was great last week. Played well a couple weeks prior to that, T18, so it's not completely out of the blue, but yeah, he's not a guy that and I mean, we've seen him kind of like rack up kind of T20s in these majors, but I have no interest in playing a chalky Charlie Hoffman this week. I think you can just pivot somewhere else, and that's definitely a good place to make a stand, I think.
Yeah, so when we get down here, these are a lot of guys where there's a lot of if statements. Like, if we get terrible conditions, guys like Zach Johnson, some of these lower scorer types, sure. Even Kisner. Like, I'm probably gonna zig where I expect him to be popular. I'm not really there with him. He gained a lot of strokes putting from what we know. You can't really see the strokes gain data, but we did see he had a ridiculous putting showing last year. But then it's like, who do you go to? I mean, I'm just looking, obviously, we've got JB Holmes there. Keith Mitchell, I have seen being talked up. I don't want to be a Keith Mitchell hater. I don't see that at all, though. I worry about his scrambling severely in a situation like this. I know he's playing great and his Florida swing was impressive, but I am not there on Keith Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people are kind of touting the course fit, and he's played well. But I think you got to question him now being on bent grass greens, especially fast, undulating bent grass greens. I think those could pose some problems for him. Like you said, short game, probably not there. So yeah, I don't think I'll be playing any Keith Mitchell.
Killer Keith. This guy, God, I don't even want to say it, but we both said that you can get away with some spraying, and the course history does reflect it. Jimmy Walker, not bad. His form is awful. Not what I want to see, but he seems to take to Augusta a bit. He's I'm just going to rattle them off: 8th, 38th, 29th, 18th, and 20th in the past 5 years. Making cuts, and again, last man in. Do you want to go there, or are you just like, again, this is an unnecessary risk?
I don't know. He just seems, a couple years ago, I don't know if it's maybe about 3 years ago, he felt like he was getting up there. We saw him on the Ryder Cup, and it's been a rough couple years for him.
The Lyme disease.
The Lyme disease. I mean, no, I'm not to make fun of it, but I really do think that's somewhat kind of derailed his career.
Absolutely.
I like Siwoo Kim, and that really scares me. I know.
No.
No, you're not going. I mean, just if he's chalky, that's going to be a disaster. But just kind of embracing the volatility of some of these players. We saw him play well last week. He'd been kind of doing it with the putter, which was strange. But last week, I saw him gain 7 strokes with the ball striking. T4 or better in 3 of his last 6 starts. I'm going to take some shots with him and hope he's on. I mean, when he's on, he's on. When he's not, he's not. Not in love with the course fit. He seems to do better at shorter courses. But, I just think the ball striking was there last week. The guy can get new caught, and at 6,700, I'll take a couple shots with him. If he's going to be, 15, 18%, that's probably going to dampen it a little bit for me. But, I like the way he played last week. He's been really up and down, hoping maybe we can catch him again on one of these up weeks. But I think he has more upside than almost all these guys down here.
That part I can't dispute. I mean, we've seen Siwoo, obviously he won the Players. He's a winner. He wins tournaments. It's extreme risk, even in a cut with only 25 guys. And if he gets even a average ownership mass, that's where I think miscut equity for me is palpable. Then again, I'm about to say Aaron Wise, so what do I know? There are guys that, yeah, I know. He's one guy though, in terms of like a milli tournament where you on occasion do want an aggressive stance. Best club is the driver. I think you can utilize that there, but it's been a rough 2019. Other than that, though, I really don't have much. The last guy I'll mention, Griot is just down there. I think he's good enough to play fine. We never really see him put it together, especially in majors. Hasn't progressed much, but I think he's just a better player than some of your options down there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to see him contending. But yeah, as the last guy in, probably going to make the cut. I'll throw in Biergard. Was
64.
bad last week. He was really bad, but at 6,400, I mean, it's very possible that he was just worn out from the match play, because that's a pretty brutal week of golf, playing, what was it, 7 rounds that he played, and then having to go to Valero. But he was bad. I mean, he was not good off the tee. He was horrible on approach. He lost 6 strokes on and around the green, and that's only in 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's bad.
But I think you can chalk a lot of that up to having played 7 rounds in 5 days the week before. So I mean, he should good course fit. I could see him kind of doing what Peters did a couple years ago and just coming out new pat. How long he is off the tee, makes a lot of birdies, and I think at 6,400, I think he brings a little bit of upside, if not just scoring, like DK scoring upside, if he doesn't make it through the cut. So I mean, he's one of the few guys I like down here, and I think it's kind of easy to write off the missed cut last week at Valero.
I'll say this: I'm more interested in playing him after seeing his Valero. To be honest,
Yeah.
I think that got people, because if he would have played well last week, we would be talking about one of the more popular plays, certainly the most popular play in the 6K range, and one of the most popular plays overall. It was a horrible sandwich spot. Like, he beats Tiger, he beats Stenson, he plays 7 rounds, and he's going to the Masters for the first time in 2 weeks.
Right.
It's a tough ask. So I'm glad he got cut. I think that helps him get a couple days. You can get to I don't know where, if he left. I'm assuming obviously got to Georgia a little earlier, and now he can take his shot. Chats mentioned Fred Couples, Bernard Langer. These guys, I don't think there's merit to them in big field tournaments, because I think the upside is capped. But if you're looking for someone to make a cut, you could do worse than that. I certainly agree, but I like taking at least some upside. I'm not sure what kind of gear those guys have anymore, to be honest.
Just play Fred Couples in like the showdown slate round 1, because he's going to shoot 67 on Thursday, and then he's gonna fire like 3 more like 74s or something.
See, these are things. Him and Charlie Hoffman, just
Yeah.
Anyone else? I mean, now we get the rest. It's pretty much amateurs and some of the senior guys that haven't made a cut since it's been a while. So I don't think you want to dip too low. And other than that, I mean, that's it. That just shows it's not a big field, as we said. It is what it is.
Yeah, there's nothing down here. And even these seniors, I mean, they're just not cheap enough to just say, well, if he makes the cut, just making the cut for, 6,100 to me just isn't enough. That if you're bringing like 0 upside to the table, if you guys were like 5K and maybe gave you a really opportunity to jam in some guys at the top. But I mean, at flat 6, 61, 62, you're way better off just spending a couple $100 more and getting a legitimate player who actually has some upside.
Agreed. So obviously this is a good betting week. What did you wager on? What do we got?
Yeah, well, this is a tough week because I really feel like you have to bet this tournament a couple weeks in advance. It feels like once the week of the event rolls around, the odds, they never drift out farther. They're only kind of shortening, and everybody knows how this course is going to play and who's going to play well here. So I haven't bet anybody this week. I put in 4 bets leading up. Stenson 80 to 1. I bet that right before the match play. Just love his approach game. Decky 40-1. Bet that before the match play because I knew I was betting Decky regardless. I bet Bubba at 40-1. I just felt like he had the best value of the guys up top with legitimate win equity, not a long shot, but I thought 40-1 was a pretty good price. He's playing well, and this is a Bubba course. Like you said, the wind and the rain could derail him, but he plays well at his happy place, and he's playing really well this year. And then I bet Siwoo last week at 150-1, just because I knew the odds would shorten eventually, and they did. They went down to 100-1. But yeah, when I saw him playing well at Valero and striking the ball well, it's kind of just like one of those things where I know the odds are going down, so I kind of jumped on it. But I don't love Siwoo. Looking at it right now, the only interesting guys for me would be Cantlay at 66-1 and Bryson at 33-1. I don't know if I'll bet those. This is really an event where you have to bet almost a week or two in advance. I believe
there is something to that. I will say, as much as I just rained on the Siwoo train, I also bet Siwoo Kim a couple weeks ago at 150-1. It's one of the only bets that I made, not because I think he's going to win, because I figured, you know what, it is one of those guys, and you got some value there. The guy that, and it's funny, we glossed over him. I don't know if you have the odds in front of you, but Jason Day, I've seen, hovering in the high 20s, even like around 30-1. And bad weather, I'm not going to worry about with him. He's always, I don't want to say stigmatized, because he withdraws. He does that. He plays up the back. This should set up well for him. He's never really made a big charge here by any stretch. And certainly in recent weeks, you don't know, the around the green game's been lacking, but he's a guy I think as a sneaky bet, actually, might be one way for me to, because I'm not sure what I want to do with him on the DFS side. I might take a stab with Day and see what I can get. I like those odds, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good. I mean, he has a second and a third here, and a 10th. Yeah, I mean, just he kind of can spray it off the tee. That's not going to hurt him here. And the short game is great. And the fact that he's lost strokes around the green, around the green is almost one of those things where you have to look at it in a large sample size. I don't really think it's not like ball striking. I think that comes and goes. I just think, that's something either you've been good around the green. I don't make much of guys kind of losing strokes around the green over a couple events. That's just
he's incredible too. It's not
right
above average. He's possibly the best around the green player in the world. So unless something majors happened, I don't worry about that. I mean, Day's always, Chad's asking, I thought Day was hurt. He withdrew. I don't even remember what that was, but
Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, API. Okay, there we go. With his back, but then you know what? He returned for the players and he was fine. And then the back and forth of the match play he played, he's playing. I have not heard anything to the contrary, and I expect him to be just fine.
Yeah, well, when he didn't withdraw from the match play when he was eliminated, I think that kind of bodes well for his health, because I think he lost the first two matches.
He did. I can attest to that.
Yeah, and he came out and he played a meaningless match, and he was even like 3 down against Phil in that meaningless match. He still didn't withdraw. So I mean that's just very anecdotal, but I would kind of take something from that. He's not afraid to pull the plug if things aren't going well. So
yeah, that's the thing. So if you do roster him and he's 1 over through 2, and then he hits a bad drive, and you see him do
clinching his back.
Yeah, it is what it is. You're gonna have to live with that. Before we get out of here, because I did post, if people had questions from chat, and we do have some Usti talk in there, and that's a guy that we talk more about than most on a week to week. I had been on him. I was on him in Valspar, and he actually was finally good, but he did it all around the green and putting. Usti's always, a hard course, big time major. He's coming second in all the majors. He has a major win. I'm indifferent to the play personally. 40-1-ish in the betting market. I wish he was more in the 60-1 range, but do you have any feel with one of our favorite South Africans?
Yeah, the event where he gained what was it, 10 strokes with was putting around the green or something. I mean, it
was ridiculous.
That's kind of smoke and mirrors for me. I don't make too much out of that. I don't know. At 8,100, I don't think I'll be playing too much Usti this week. I don't know. I mean, he has the second here, but besides that, he has not been great at Augusta. Almost a Stenson-esque record where he had, 12th, 41st, 15th, 19th. Nothing terrible, but just aside from the second. Um,
he's got some, like, I don't want to say he's a Siwoo Kim, but he's got some Siwoo in him
oh,
where like he just shows up and
yes.
sometimes he has it, other times he withdraws because he doesn't have his bed. Like
100%. Yeah.
so.
You got to know what you're getting into when you're playing Usti. It's, very, very hit or miss. But like you said, obviously at the majors, he brings it on more than one occasion.
Or he withdraws like he did in the PGA, which
very, very possible
was lovely. So, like I said, it's obviously, I think we both love the Masters. To me, it's one of the harder weeks to do this, though, because you get into the traps of I could recommend 60 guys and really give you a reason of why I like them, and you're not going to be able to play that. So if you're no matter how many teams you're making, you can't get them all. You're gonna have to leave some top players off. That's my advice. We usually kind of give a final statement before we get out of here. For me, it's that don't be afraid to say I like this guy, but I can't get him in. You have to make some type of stand, especially up top.
Yeah, 100%. You're gonna have to make a stand, and some of these guys, with the condensed field, with so many players making the cut, you're gonna have a lot of guys. But Kuchar, like we said, he's not gonna. It's gonna be really hard for him to kill you. But I mean, if you play him, or if you fade him and he finishes T20, I mean, that's probably not gonna kill you either. So it's like
absolutely, especially if say Leishman comes in sixth, like.
Right.
The chances that, I mean, people will pair them, but when you're getting those pivots, it's almost like a head-to-head situation.
Yeah, and I think it looks worse on paper when you're like, oh, I faded Kuchar and he's T18. But you know what? In this, just with the condensed field, yeah, that T18's probably not going to kill you. I mean, yeah, if he finishes T4, yeah, you're probably done. But
that's the problem. Yeah. It is, again, it's a fine line. You don't want to. It's just tough because, like I said this already, one of the allures of when you have 40% owned Kokrak, in theory, now this doesn't actually happen, but in theory, he could miss a cut. And the allure of that, you're paid off immensely. With something like this, the chances that happens where you get the full payoff is minimal. So it helps people who want to kind of just take that and move on. But you're absolutely right. The window, it does work both ways. Even if Kuchar has a good showing, there are ways around it. Obviously, if he wins or something, that's, you're done. But if he has a standard good week and your lineup is constructed where you're equally as effective, you'll be there at the end. There's no doubt about it. But last thing we have to do, obviously, pressure is on. Who wins the Masters?
Oh man, this is such a tough question. Can I say Decky?
Of course, that's a good one.
That's it. I mean, this is it. The ball. It's finally he's going to put it together. He's gonna the putting is gonna come around this week, and a la Adam Scott, just gonna ball strike and make just enough putts. So yeah, there we go. Who you got?
So obviously I would love Rory to win because he's my favorite and he's the best and all that. I'm not going to take a crazy stand. I really do think that Rose is going to win. I just think this is his time. He's had so many chances, and I don't want to say he's flying under the radar. I really thought that he would be the favorite. I know that Rory is playing unbelievable, and I totally get it. But man, Rose is serious business. So I have a feeling that he takes it down. But if he doesn't, I hope Rory wins. Other than that, I mean, we'll get out of here. Obviously, if people have questions, you can find us on Twitter. Adam Scott will win from the chat. I like that call. I wouldn't hate that because I'm going to have some Adam Scott this week.
For sure.
If you have any questions, like I said, negative comments, Fantasy Golf Man, positive comments, Jazz Red DFS, as I always say, me and Jason Roslin tomorrow night, 9 p.m., going to be lineup construction and Q&A focused. So if we didn't get to your questions today, hop back tomorrow. In chat, we will be there. Thanks, Josh, for producing. Great week. Hope everyone checks out the site as we always do. And we'll be back next week for a less interesting tournament, but it'll still be fun.
No.
Okay.
Crown jewel of the PGA Tour.
Crown jewel of the PGA. I misspoke. So on that note, we'll get out of here. Good luck, everyone. We will see you next week.